This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have award-winning author June Gillam here to talk about her newest release, Fallen Kings, Unholy Secrets. Welcome, June.
Hi, Marie. It's great to be here with you.
I am so excited that you are here. In fact, so excited about this particular book. But before I pitch it to you for an overview of the story, I'd like you to tell readers a little bit about the dedication for this book.
Well, the book is dedicated to my mother, Geraldine Robeson, because of how strong she was and courageous, because she battled for women's rights as a member of and an employee of the Retail Clerks Union in Sacramento, California, and they ended up firing her for her efforts. And she took it to the NLRB and went through that whole system, and she won her case, and they had to rehire her with all back pay. And she really stood up for all the other women in the office too. So it's about recognizing her for courage to stand up for women's rights.
And that does perfectly set the tone for this particular story. Why don't you give an overview of what the story is about?
Well, it features a happily married ethnic studies professor named Hillary Broom, and she's just on summer vacation time, ready to go to Italy with her beloved husband, her rock, and her teenage daughter, who just came out last year and is a happy member of the Pride community in Sacramento. But they just discovered there's an upsurge in hate crimes in their area. So Hillary's kind of worried about her daughter. Meanwhile, in Italy, there's a group of men who've gathered around a parish priest named Father Tommaso, and he's trying to solve the problem of women. Women are getting too powerful now, and the cardinal wants Father Tommaso to organize a group of men to try to help get those women back into their traditional roles, and at the same time save their souls, because they are now heretics doomed to hellfire if they don't shape up.
And that paints a very, very, very powerful backdrop for what is an amazingly propulsive story. As you said, it's kind of two storylines that we know as the reader are bound to converge. And as much as we want to get there, we kind of don't because, you have on one side this beautiful family, and then you have these very dark forces converging. June, where did the idea, obviously, I think there's some hint with the dedication to the book, but where did the idea for this story come from?
Well, in the past few years, it just seems like there's more and more backlash against women getting stronger. Women seem to be becoming more powerful in business and in the church, and also in the gay rights community. All kinds of gender issues are being looked at, and actually freedom is at stake lately. There's a lot of energy around trying to make women stay in their traditional place, serving the patriarchy.
And it's an interesting dynamic because it seems like we've developed some severe polarity on this issue, where it's not just, okay, well, you're free to choose, it's you should choose my way. And I think that's always been there in society, but we're certainly, there's so many causes that we can look to: social media, people are living more in silos and echo chambers. But backlash against women and not wanting women, or any group really that has been underrepresented, that their voices have been stifled in the past, that's kind of a thing throughout human history, isn't it? That the folks in power don't want other people to have voices, do they?
Right, but sometimes it's more obvious and other times it's more hidden. And so the idea for this actually came to me because I thought, what if there was a group of religious zealots who thought they were doing the right thing? Although this has happened in the past also, the Crusades were also about things like that. So I thought, what if Hillary has to face a group of people who are devoted to overcoming the changes they see because they think it's ruining the culture, because they think they're going to save the culture by returning these women to their roles as wives and mothers.
One of the things I thought you did so well in this, you've got these kind of two storylines that, again, are bound to converge, but really showing how much people firmly believe what they believe and how tradition is something that cuts both ways for humanity, right? In certain ways, it's something that gives us solace in times like, for example, funeral services. The traditions around those, they can offer an element of solace in a situation that we as people will never really get around, losing people. We never seem to ever come to terms with that. And to some degree, that can help. Tradition around certain types of things that happen in people's lives make them feel comfortable. Of course, the converse of that is that comfort in being in boxes isn't always the best for the individual, is it?
Absolutely not. I actually just went to a funeral this morning, and you're right. The traditions that we went through was very comforting. But in terms of boxes, that's actually what happens in the book. Literally, I love your show's name, Twisted Passages, because we end up with people in catacombs, basically. I'll just give a little bit away because I went to Italy a couple times researching this book, and so I did spend time in a couple of the catacombs. And in terms of putting people in boxes, that's the final, destination for people would be in a niche in the catacomb. And so that's what you would call the bad guys are trying to do here is put the women who have gone astray. They're trying to convert them and bring them back to a better way for the sake of their own soul's good, so they won't die and go to hell later because they're heretics against the traditional teaching of the church. So kind of like posing the traditional teachings of the church against the new way of interpreting the teachings in a more inclusive way so that the teachings embrace everyone and everyone's freedoms.
I do want to tell you, I'm very sorry for your loss and for the fact that you're on the show today after going through a funeral. I greatly appreciate you coming and sharing after going through that. A quick question around kind of the church and where it's been and where it's going. One of the things that I think fascinates me about institutions, whether they're churches, whether they're universities, their businesses, whatever they are, sometimes families can become institutions, is the idea of judgment. And in the Judeo-Christian tradition, where there's this concept that God is the judge, not man. Yet it seems like we all spend a lot of time running around judging each other, whether we mean to or not. We make split-second judgments. We're running into the grocery store and somebody cuts us off, or they walk in a certain way, or they're doing whatever. And whether we mean to or not, we're making judgments about those people and maybe what they believe or what they think. And sometimes we don't even recognize it in our own minds. And that showed up as a recurring theme. I thought you handled it so deftly, because not only did you have these guys who clearly have issues when it comes to judgment, but you also really humanized Hillary. Because there's a couple of times when she says things and her own daughter is giving the eye roll, the painful eye roll of, really, Mom? You really just said that?
Absolutely. The intergenerational conflict is very present in the book. The tension between Hillary and her own mother, who actually abandoned her when she was 10 years old. So Hillary has a lot to get cleared up with her own mother. Well, Hillary's what they call the sandwich generation. because she has a mother that's on the trip with them, and she's a very distinctive artistic personality. And then her daughter, who's only not even 16, and she's hoping to go to college in Rome. And she's a basketball player, and she's very friendly with a lot of the gay students. So she's teaching her mother a lesson. She's teaching Hillary some lessons while Hillary's trying to teach her mother some lessons. That whole layering of family drama is really important in that book.
This is obviously not your first Hillary novel, and seeing Hillary grow over the course of these books, and particularly in this one, because like you said, you really pinned her, you really bookended her and put her in a situation where she's fighting against the forces of judgment, yet she's judging pretty heavily herself too.
Absolutely, yeah.
And those dynamics, family dynamics, are so very important. In her family, she didn't grow up in a, what some would say, traditional nuclear family. And she's trying to create that. But then she's also potentially destroying opportunities for her daughter to have that because of her issues with her mom. Was that hard for you to play out, or have you seen enough of that kind of thing where we don't always see our parents as clearly as we might?
Yeah, Marie, it was hard. It was actually very hard. I'm pleased with how it actually turned out. I worked with a lot of people on it. I worked with Joey Garcia. She was an important developmental editor for me. She's taught religion in Catholic schools for 20 years. She also was an authenticity reader for me. It was hard. It was hard. And then so those three women are present, but then there also are three important nuns who belong to a convent there, and they're very important characters in the book also in terms of dealing with family conflict and dealing with forgiveness and dealing with revealing the truth. So there's some secrets besides the secret men's meetings, some sort of tragic secrets really that don't come out till near the end. I probably shouldn't be saying that, but
well, saving the secret reveals till the end is always a good thing, in my opinion. That's what we keep turning pages for. But you touched on forgiveness, and that was such a powerful theme in this story. And again, you played it out in a multidimensional way. There's this dynamic from this group, this cabal of men, if you will. Some of them seem like they can't forgive themselves for things, and they're projecting that, like, somehow if I change other people, it's going to make me better. I don't know how that works, but they're thinking that. And then, of course, forgiveness in the dynamics between Hillary and her mother, Paisley. And the way that all of that is playing out, and like you said, these nuns who are really, in many ways, the way that you create them, kind of enigmatic characters. You give us certain things about them that seem obvious, and you tell us these things. But then there's these secrets, and we're not 100% sure what everybody's, how they're coming at this and how they're going to respond to every situation.
I see them sort of almost as the spirits of a new age. I actually didn't even realize that till now you're bringing it up, but they seem to be holding certain spiritual space that I think has some merit.
The amount of research that you put into this, it was beautiful in terms of making the cases about why certain people might feel the way they do, and why men in some of these groups do feel like, oh my God, the world is spinning out of control. If we lift all of these voices, then it's going to be chaos, right? Because only these voices can be heard. And it was just, like I said, so many different dimensions that you dealt with. Heck, there were just so many moments where I closed the book and stared off thinking, wow, where are we headed as a people? And what does that say about where we've been and what we're capable of?
Well, one thing about the men is that they all have deep yearnings that are so understandable. They're so human. And I think it's not all that hard to understand where they're coming from and what they are hoping and praying to have surrounding them in terms of their own sense of being loved, and having it be threatened the way they feel it is now is just devastating to them.
And it's interesting because that's one of those things that you close the book and you take a breath and you think about, what is the nature of love? And is there, we receive love, if we're lucky, from so many different sources. We can have love from a parent, love from a child, love from another species, a pet. We can have love from teachers who go out of their way and invest their time and their efforts in us. So many different places, mentors at work, folks who hold the door open for you at Starbucks and just say, hey, maybe I'm not going to ride with you and be your ride or die through life, but you know what? In this one moment, I can show you a little love and hold the door open for you. And it's really interesting because I think if we fail to see all of the love around us, it does make us feel that there's scarcity. And it seems like scarcity is a way that sometimes people in power are able to control other people, because they make you feel like, hey, there's only this and it only exists in this jar over here. It can't come to you any other way.
That's it. The scarcity versus abundance worldview.
One of the other things I wanted to touch on real quick that I just thought was so rich and beautiful was the way that you described Italy. I'm a Northern Cal girl, so I know Sacramento pretty well, but your descriptions of Italy, of the architecture, the countryside, the food, oh my goodness, June. Oh, were you writing the book at the time that you went?
Yes, I went years ago, and then I went again a couple of years ago when I was writing. So yes, it was from memory and also from lived experience at the time. Yeah.
And I have to say, your descriptions of these meals, oh my goodness, I could like smell the olive oil and the sizzling bistecca. And
the last time I went, I did not get any bistecca because we weren't that near to Florence. But I'm going next summer to Alan Watts' Tuscan retreat for writers. And then I'll get some bistecca.
Oh my goodness, June, if I could sneak away in your luggage, I would be right there with you. That sounds absolutely amazing.
I'm excited, yeah.
One of the other little quick things I wanted to touch on, and Hillary's got a book that's very much inspired by this, and it's part of Hillary and her world and her family's world. Can you talk a little bit about your love of basketball, because it does filter into Hillary and her family. And I know, and anyone who follows you on social media knows about your love of the Kings and your support for the WNBA.
Well, the funny thing, Marie, is when I first met Jerry Gillam, he was a huge, huge basketball fan, a Notre Dame Subway alumni member. He was dean of the Capitol Press Corps and knew Bob Moretti, and went back with Bob Moretti to the Notre Dame games, mostly actually football, but sometimes basketball. And so when I first met him, he asked me, do you like sports? I said, no. I said, no. And so it was so funny. So he turned me into a Kings fan. And then when the Monarchs first came out in 97, I think, he got us season tickets for our anniversary and got them every year. And Marie, he died 4 months before they shut them down. So he never had to see. So I turned into a basketball fan. WNBA, Sacramento Monarchs, we won the championship in 2005. I still have the Wheaties box showing the team as champions.
Awesome.
Turned me into a fan, yeah.
And I have to say, I hope it's not a spoiler, but there is a little Monarchs reference in the form of a tattoo. I won't say where, but it is mentioned in the book. And it was absolutely awesome when I read that. And I was like, oh, this is so June Gillam right here. So, June, folks who are going to fall in love with Hillary through this story, the wonderful news is they've got plenty of books to read to catch up on her backstory and really delve into who she is and how she came to be where she is, and her daughter Claire and Paisley and even her husband, all of these wonderful characters. And I'm sure there's more coming. So where is the best place for folks to find out what's coming next for you?
My website, junegillam.com, and I'm on X at June Gillam, and I'm on Instagram at June Gillam Author, and I'm on Facebook, Gorilla Girl. Gorilla Girl Inc. is my imprint. June Gillam, Gorilla Girl Inc. on Facebook, and Blue Sky now, and Thread. I think it's kind of fun to poke around in all of them, yeah.
I think it's fun too, because not everybody is everywhere. So the more you can be out there, the more folks you can meet, and the more readers can find out about your work.
Even trying to do TikTok, but really
bad at it.
Oh,
goodness. You're way ahead of me there, June. Way ahead of me.
Well, I used to demonstrate Pepsi Cola in the grocery store, so I know no shame.
Oh my gosh, June, I am hoping that one of your old Pepsi Cola demonstrations shows up now. There's going to be folks clamoring for this on TikTok, and it'll probably go viral.
That's really a good idea. Yeah.
Well, again, absolutely wonderful. Fallen Kings, Unholy Secrets, full of all sorts of questions that we should all be asking ourselves. Thank you. Thank you, June.
Thank you, Marie. It was a pleasure. Marie, I want to say one more thing. My favorite starting line ever in any book is from Dark Obsessions, and I'll just read it in case it stays in here. The dead woman's house had a sunny quality to it. Fabulous line.
Oh, June, you are very, very kind. Thank you. That is very high praise. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time.